Hello everyone and welcome back to Anything Joe's, a collaborative journey through the world of G.I. Joe. My name is Greg Engel and today we're doing an unboxing. I'm trying to get back into unboxing videos and I got something in today that kind of got me inspired to do such a thing. It's the Hiya Toys exclusive Zartan. If you're not familiar with these toys, it's probably because they're not sold in the US. I had to have this one and all the others in the line imported. And although the quality ranges from release to release, I've enjoyed them enough to continue to purchase at least the unique ones. So without further ado, let's take a look at the packaging for Hiya Toys Zartan. The packaging on the Hiya Toys figures is reminiscent of vintage G.I. Joe figures with the, the firework explosion back and a traditional character on the front. This is unique art for Zartan as seen here. Let's see if we can get a closer look at it. Pretty good card art, quite honestly. Captures, everything. It's nice to see new art on Joes like this in the full as opposed to classified where they're kind of tucked away in the corner. You can see that this Zartan has alternate hands, his gun, his mask, his backpack. It looks pretty faithful to a V1 Zartan. Besides the gigantic choking hazard on the bottom of this packaging, there's not a whole lot else to make note of. On the back, we can see just kind of the sales pitch for it, as well as some foreign text that I'm sure is not worth translating. So, that's the packaging for it. Let's crack this bad boy open and see how it compares to other figures in the line. So, here he is out of the packaging. You can see that most of these figures have been very heavily influenced by the classified line, or at least some early images of them, and this is no different. This Zartan has the scarf. They've moved the thigh pads off to the side a little bit. The thing I really like about these figures, besides the fact that they're the remainder of the modern line, is they are very flexible. We've got hand posability here, and you can see it wiggles back and forth. Standard elbow bend. Arm articulation goes up and out about that far back. I'm not real clear on this body construction. I'm really only familiar with the traditional Hasbro stuff, so I can't speak. Oh, look, his cowl comes off. I'm bald. Good attention. I mean, like the paint apps, I feel like this are really strong on this. If you look at the paint on his face, it even has that little like swirl that kind of gums up towards his mouth, a little Joker-ish. His pupils are he's got like a good menacing look. I'm going to assume, I hope this comes off. Alright, well, we're not going to test it any further. If you know if these heads can be removed, I'd be interested in knowing it, but I would assume that scarf would be removed as a result of that. On the back, we see the continuation of the armor, the shoulder pads. He's got like a little knife in his pocket here, or his little sheath. Pretty little detailed accessory, right down to the little like see-through part on the end of it. I like that a lot. So the overall flexibility of the figure, I feel like, is pretty solid. It's got quite a bit of bendability. Sorry about the camera angle, but I am pretty confident that even on this, he'd be able to stand up on his own. That's the view every bald man wants, is straight down on top. But so dynamic posing, I feel like wouldn't be a big issue. Accessory set wise, we already saw the cowl, which is removable. He's got his standard backpack, which has a peg, I'm guessing, to hold one of his weapons or accessories. Does it open? It sure does. Oh, and it's quite detailed. Look at all that little computer data. This is where his mask would have normally been stored on the vintage figure. And speaking of that mask, here it is. Another really excellent detailed pose or accessory. It has a bit of a V for Vendetta vibe to it, but the original one wasn't really exactly an award winner either. Let's see if I can get it on his head. I'm sure based on the promotional pictures that it can be done. I think you probably need the cowl to hold it in place. It's a bizarre amount of makeup on this figure, on this mask. Okay. So, I mean, more believable than the vintage version. Actually, it kind of looks like he's like a Major Blood. I think we'd always assumed that the first mask was maybe supposed to be Gung Ho because it was around that same time that he came out. But, I mean, it's wearable. I didn't exactly put it on with great. I'm sure you could center it even more if you wanted to. And I've got to be honest, it's probably not an accessory that I'm going to be using very often. But I appreciate that it's included, and I like that it is like the original. It does fit in the case, as I mentioned. Okay, so I had to take it off screen for a minute because it's such a tight fit. It's actually designed, sorry, why am I using this camera? It's designed to like snap in very precisely. It will not close unless it's in there exactly. I'm under the impression, and I don't know where this piece of lore came from, but I'm under the impression that this backpack is supposed to make a prosthetic mask for Zartan on the fly, and that's what it is it's kind of like printing it out and then he wears it. I don't remember where I heard that or if there's any factual basis on it at all, but it sounds really cool. So if I'm not stealing it from somebody, then I'm claiming it as an awesome original idea. But it seems like it makes too much sense not to. The only other accessories that this Zartan comes with is he does have two interchangeable hands designed for holding weapons as opposed to the kind of neutral hands that you see here where you can just kind of hold a weapon or even make a fist. And then he comes with the last remaining accessory is his little laser pistol, which also I think is, I mean, this is a great figure. In previous versions, people, me specifically, had complained about the detail on the face had really gone downhill, and it almost ruins the figure, quite frankly. A lot of these figures that I have bought up to this point, I bought with the intent at some point, once I figured out what's going on with that head, to put a better head mold on it, because the figures themselves I think are exceptional. Easily the best modern representation of G.I. Joes if you're into 1/18th scale stuff. Let's take a look at other Hiya Toy figures in this scale to see how he compares, and let's also look at some other Zartans in the past to see how things have changed. Hey, before we do that, I wanted to just take a second real quick and point out that these are, I was going to change these hands out to put his gun in, and these are so easily removable. I did not boil this figure. If you guys know anything about me, you know that I'm kind of anti-boil. I don't feel like toys should be like that. You just, if there's a issue with the plastic, fix it yourself and then get it to me. Just my old man rant. But anyway, I just wanted to point out that as the only interchangeable part on Zartan, I'm relieved at how exceptionally easy, just while we were talking, I put it in. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. And you don't get a lot of that in toys anymore. I've damaged some figures because I'm such a stubborn fool about it. All right, now let's take a look at some other stuff. I wanted to give you guys two examples. I own a lot of these figures today. I'm pretty invested in the line overall because my passion is still with 1/18th figures pretty much my whole life since these lines started. And I don't have all of them, but I have as many of them as I've been able to acquire on my budget. And I wanted to give you an example of what I'm talking about in terms of good figures and bad figures. This is one of the earlier figures. It's the Cobra Commander. And it's an exceptional figure. The head mask is really cool. It's got like that vac chrome in it. It's it's a slightly modernized take on Cobra Commander. That helmet especially is very Resolute influence. It's got a great accessory build. You can see that he has an interchangeable hand where he's pointing, which is how I have him posed. It's a top tier figure. I really only have very, very minor complaints about it, and since it's not the review for that, I won't get into it, but I think it's a great figure. And the other figure I brought is this Flint. Now, this Flint is a great figure from the neck down, but the head on this Flint, it's so pasty, it doesn't even really pick it up well on the camera. It's bad. I mean, it's really bad. It's worse than any other modern Flint that I can think of. As like that's the plan would be to just put a Hasbro modern 25th, 50th. I'm not that particular because they it's just a bad head mold. I don't. I'm not saying it's a deal breaker for these figures, but if you're interested in this line at all, it's something to look into. And so again, I just wanted to say how refreshing it is to see this Zartan with a really, really good head mold. I will be so invested if all the figures continue to be of this level of quality. So yeah, there you can see there's a bit of a sawtooth. If you are just looking to buy your favorite figure, you should look them up online and see what they look like out of the packaging first, because the head mold is a big deal for me. Looking back on earlier versions of Zartan, I'm not really here so much as to critique the design as much as just look at the evolution of the character, so to speak. And so there's only one place to go from there, and that's with our good friend, our good vintage figure here. One of my favorite vintage figures. If I've not said this before, if you're not a regular listener of our show, Zartan is probably my favorite Cobra villain out of the whole kit and caboodle, and I'm extremely passionate about like all of his toys, everything about him. This is my second vintage Zartan, which is a real deal breaker for my collection. I don't usually keep two of the same figure, but this one has the like color changing sticker on it, which is I guess permanently. I don't know how to change that, and I don't want to mess with it. But anyway, so looking at this Zartan, I mean, the fundamentals are here, right? We've got the cowl, we've got the face paint. Obviously, they added the scarf, and they've taken his belt, and it's a detachable piece now. The arms or shoulder pads has always been a bit of a mystery because there's on the vintage figure there's flesh in between the vest. It looks like the vest is just a single piece, and he doesn't wear anything underneath. And here they've in other years, they've connected that shoulder piece to make it more like a football type piece, which makes sense. It's weird to just have sleeves on like that. But vintage figures left a lot to the imagination. You filled it in however you felt was appropriate. Length of the gloves has been extended, and he's also got this armband, which I don't really feel strongly about. They've added that knife because I don't see anything on this Zartan to suggest that he was carrying a knife at that time, other than down here at his boot. I am noticing that. So maybe this has moved from boot to his backside, which makes more sense, I guess, if you're going to try to grab it, not as a secret. The color palette has changed a bit. I'm no color wheel man. I do recognize this as brown. I'm not really sure what this is, like not a mahogany, but it's just like a weird kind of off brown. I think this was the right move to change it to the traditional brown. It doesn't really feel off for the character. It's probably a lot easier to just make brown as opposed to trying to match this color. And there are characters where I feel like the color match is important. Starduster is a character that I complained about recently not getting quite the blend that I felt would be perfect shade. OG-13 green, right, is very particular and is different for each character. I don't feel that way about Zartan. This is fine. And as you're getting ready to see, it's been pretty much a long-running change for him that's been accepted. I brought two modern figures to show as an example. One pretty bad one, in my opinion, and one pretty good one. And they're from opposite ends of the line. This is like one of the very first Zartans that came out around the 25th. And then this is, I think, the very final Zartan from the 50th anniversary Toys R Us exclusives, like literally the last modern toys sold at retail. And I mean, the bad Zartan there's not really anything. It's just dated, honestly. You can see that the thigh pads on that Zartan, as well as the good Zartan, are on the front facing thigh, and on this figure they've changed them to kind of to the sides. That would be the one thing I would probably like to see reverted. I miss the like crystal clear part of the vintage ones where they were kind of, it doesn't have to be translucent or see-through. You could be like hologram-ish, or I don't know, there's something there I think that is more interesting than just the thigh pads, which we see here as well. They changed it to just black. This one's just silver. Pretty boring. Both of these modern Zartans are wearing like more clothing. This guy's got like a full on jacket. Like, I mean, he's got full sleeves. He's got his little ab crunch covered, which is really weird. The only thing I can think of that lends any credibility to that design is in the Devil's Due Press around this time, Zartan had like a illness in the very beginning, like where he couldn't be in sunlight. So maybe they were trying to build that up to where he was just trying to protect his whole body. It doesn't really work, in my opinion. And the color they're using for that shirt is a bit of a miss as well. In general, both of these modern figures have kind of deviated a little bit too much from the formula, specifically that these pieces should be black, in my opinion, and not silver. But that doesn't change the fact that this is a pretty exceptional figure overall. Now, the real question is, come here, my lovelies, is it better than this one? And I think most of us would agree that the answer to that is no. You might feel strongly, you might feel differently about it, or maybe you're just a diehard Hasbro. You can see that there's definitely a bit of a height difference between these two, and that is something that I guess I hadn't really considered. I'm a bit of a loose cannon when it comes to scale. I have played with vintage and modern figures at the same time, so I don't think about it too much, but this is something I guess to factor in if you want to add it to your existing modern collection. Be aware that he's about a head taller than the average. He probably would stack up with that 50th Gung Ho, which I think is probably one of the tallest and biggest figures they made. At the end of the modern line, especially if you go back and compare it to the beginning, modern figures had started to get bigger. They were just larger in scale. The Destro is another good example. So he would probably still fit in with the end of the line. But realistically, just play with your angles and make it work. It's not impossible at all. It doesn't faze me at all. I've always just assumed that these will be mixed in with my modern figures no matter what I'm doing. If I'm just playing with them, if I'm doing toy photography, whatever it is, I'm just like, yeah, they're in. I like them a lot. And they're basically a lot of them are taking over as like my favorite definitive modern version. So that's going to do it for the review of the Hiya Exquisite mini-series 1/18 scale 4-inch G.I. Joe Zartan action figure. Man, that's a mouthful. I recommend this figure? Yes, I do. They are a little bit on the pricey side. If I didn't mention that at the start, they'll probably run you between $25 and maybe as much as $35 after shipping, depending on where you get it from. It's a bit of a crapshoot. But I will say to take the time and do your homework before you purchase from any international seller. Make sure they're legit, or try to find somebody that can vouch for them. There are a lot of them out there. I've been talking about the Ninja Turtle line that's also been coming out that's not been sold in the U.S. and I've had pretty good luck having them imported at what would normally have cost me a lot more. I'm starting to get them within a reasonable price. I'm not paying too much more than a classified figure. I know you could argue that it's significantly less plastic, but the enjoyment I get out of these is substantially more than an average classified figure, because of it's my love of the scale. So something to think about. If you pick up this figure, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments, or you can email us directly at anythingjoespodcast@gmail.com, or any of this Hiya Exquisite line. I'm really fascinated with it. There doesn't seem to be a ton of collectors out there, and if there are, they're not very vocal. I'm hoping that unboxing videos like these will bring everybody out of the woodwork and we can kind of have a place to enjoy them all together. Or critique. They didn't send it to me for free, so the reviews stay as is. Thanks so much for watching, and we look forward to talking to you next time, or anything's available for discussion here on Anything Joe's.